before him, even before he had gone, even then, going all the way back, people don't realize it, but Dr. King attended the first Ghana independence on March the 6th of 1957. Dr. Martin Luther King was there. And so it's been like waves ever since 57 up until where we are now. And so we see ourselves as a part of those waves that's coming in off the Gulf of Guinea, that's leading our people back homeward. So that's what our people need to be a part of those waves that's going that way, just like we was a part of the waves that's brought us this way when it was on the bad side. But now it's our time. This is a good time for us as a people. So we need to ride our waves back the other way and just come in wave by wave. And the key in order for our people to do this is that we have to set up these community organizations on this side to bring the awareness to our brothers and sisters so they realize the opportunity. We'll give you a good example, brother. A good example. Recently in Ghana, we purchased a half an acre of land. We paid $138 deposit for the land, and each plot is like $29 a month. But I got 2 plots, so I paid like $58 a month. So for $58 a month, I have a half an acre, and a community is being built. A diaspora community is being built.
That is unheard of.
Wow. Right. You can't. It's chump change. It's less than $1 a day, and you're getting prime land. This land is less than a mile. This land is less than a mile off the Gulf of Guinea, where you see white sand, you see beaches. It's almost, man. It's so pristine. Just sitting there every day. You have to just check and say, hey, man, you got to do more than just sit here. So you got things that you got to do. But it's just a beautiful sight, the perfect weather. I mean, it's just like you being back into your natural habitat. And so we are able to get back in our natural habitat for pennies when we have the knowledge and information. Our brothers and sisters have plenty. They'll be surprised how far their money will go in Ghana. I mean, $1 in an American dollar in Ghana is worth 5 of their dollars, 5.8 or something like that. So if you had $100 in American money, you got $580 some in their money. So our money it multiplies 500% just by being there. So you take a 10,000 income, and you actually got 50,000 on that level. And by us having the American standard, with our money and our living, it takes us to a whole different level when we go there. Although we're not rich here, the level that we have achieved here, it places us on a more of an upper crust. We be in like an upper crust zone when we get there. And so that right there moves us from being poor and people looking down. It moves to people actually celebrating you, glad to see you, welcoming you, bringing you back and treating you like a prince. Actually bowing before you and bring it. So this is a full circle. You went away in chains. You went away in hatred and sorrow. Now you're coming back, and people actually bowing before you and treating you like a prince and inviting you back home. This is nothing but the story that we read in the book about Joseph is just being read out right before our very eyes in this day and time.
Wow, man! What area of Ghana are you purchasing your land at where the community is being built?
It's in an area in the central region. It's in the central region near a city called Winnipeg, in the central region there.
Okay.
And it's right between when you leave Accra heading toward Cape Coast, heading toward that way. Yeah, it's in there. And so so it's the chiefs in that land have allotted 400 acres for the diaspora, and Most High's put it on their hearts. And you got different chiefs in different areas throughout the country. You got land in the northern area that's being opened up. You got in all the different areas in the country, they're opening up land for the brothers and sisters from the diaspora. And just like the tourism minister said after the death of George Floyd, she made a statement and said, if they don't want you here, Ghana is your home. You're welcome to return to your home. So our people have to get, it's like being in an abusive relationship. You be in an abusive relationship, but that's all you know. And although the relationship is abusive, to leave that and to go elsewhere, it's like going to the unknown. So you rather sit there and deal with the abuse because you're familiar with that. But to move out and to move away from that, that brings uncertainty and you got to make it, you got to do this and that. So what you do is that I call it the battered woman syndrome. So what you do is that you get used to those whippings and you try to placate your master, and you just hope that he don't get drunk and abuse you, and you hope that you can, that he don't drink from the bottle of racism and get drunk and want to go upside your head again. And so, but that's the only option that you know when you accept that. But we're saying that we as a people, we don't have to stay in this abusive relationship. We have another alternative, and that alternative is going the way that we came. And that's what our people got to begin to get into their mind as we approach 2030, because we're in a new decade. We're moving from 2020, moving to 2030. There's no way that our people should continue to operate the way that they operated for the last 400 years. I call it a spiritual Juneteenth. What happened, Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st in 1863. But the brothers and sisters down in Galveston, Texas, they didn't hear it. So they continued to languish and to operate as if chattel slavery was still the law, long after slavery was over with, because they didn't hear the word from the man on high, who was Abraham Lincoln, that you didn't have to do that no more. Well, we liken 2019 we call it a spiritual Juneteenth. The Most High has opened up the door. He used the president of Ghana to make the announcement. But he opened up the door to let our people know that chattel slavery, or the 400 years, is over with. Now you don't have to continue to operate the way you've been operating for the last 400 years. But again, when our brothers and sisters don't hear the word from on high, they do like their ancestors did in Galveston, Texas. They continue to operate as if chattel slavery is still in effect, when the fact of the matter is it's over with. So for us as a people, this is over with. But until we organize ourselves and come into the frame of mind, because, once it's over with, you got to leave the plantation, you got to make a new house, you got to get your blanket, where you're going to stay, what you're going to do. Master, he was abusive, but he did have a slave cabin. Master was abusive. He did feature every day. Master was abusive, and so, but now, all of a sudden, now, since it's over with, now you got to provide all of that for yourself. And so now you're on a whole different dimension. And so this is where we are now. It's over with. So what we should be doing is organizing now as a people on how we're going to take advantage of the fact that we don't have to be in chattel slavery no more to these people.
And I think that's good that you mentioned that. And in closing, do you have any final remarks or suggestions for our people? Any final words that you'd like to share with our listeners? I'd like for you to definitely give your contact information again, and share with our listeners your upcoming initiatives.
Good. Once again, a phone number for the record, so everyone can have it. It's area code 901, and the number is 480-3475. I'll say it one more time. Area code 901-480-3475. And you can contact me that way. Feel free to call anytime you need to. It's open 24 hours with Newsroom. So we're a Newsroom. We always want to keep the Newsroom open. If we get a message, we'll get it and we'll get back to you. But the Newsroom is always open. And also, again, Yitzhak, our Facebook, YISSAC. That's YISSAC. Spell it twice. Yitzhak on Facebook. And then you can go to our Facebook and on Twitter, again, at Jehoshaphat Israel. And that way you can stay in contact, and you can reach out to make sure I get the publication to you, to get the book. I hadn't mentioned the book. I would like to say a few things about that right quickly. I published my first book, family. The name of the book is The Revelations of Daniel, Yah's Prophetic Utterance to Black America and All Mankind. And what this book does is actually trace the human history, world history, but what it does, it reveals the presence of Yah in the midst of our human history. And that's the element that's been missing out of human history that we have been taught by our, oppressors. They've told us about history. You can go to school and learn about Henry VIII, or learn about Charles this or this, that, and that. But what they don't do is put it in the context of this is a continuation of the explanation of the dream that Daniel interpreted for Nebuchadnezzar. That's what our historians, that's what our human history people don't want to analyze or bring to the forefront. Because when you understand that when Daniel interpreted that dream for Nebuchadnezzar, human history has unfolded exactly like the brother said it would. And today is a good example, and I'll say it quickly. The last kingdom that he mentioned was toes. He said he saw 10 toes. He said the 10 toes was part iron and part clay. So if you got 10 toes and the toes are fractured, so that means you got 10 partly fractured iron toes, and you have 10 partly fractured clay toes. So if you put the 10 plus the 10, you got 20. And that's what we have today. We have a global kingdom today called the G20. The G20 is made up of 10 rich countries and 10 developing countries. They've joined together to create this global kingdom that gives these 20 nations really dominion over all the other 175 nations upon the face of the earth, in this global organization called the G20. The G20 is quite as it kept. They're the main people that's behind this coronavirus that we're dealing with today, coming through the World Health Organization and coming through the United Nations. I cover all this in the book. The book came out in 2019. All this stuff happened earlier this year. I came out in July of 2019, and the coronavirus came out in China in November of 2019. We went to Jamestown, Virginia to pray on the banks of the James River in August of 2019. And again, the coronavirus broke out in 2019, and the world hasn't been the same. It hadn't been the same since then. So we see a direct correlation between that, and I point that out in the book, The Revelations of Daniel, Yah's Prophetic Utterance to Black America and All Mankind. And I say specifically Black America because Black America got to see themselves in the mirror. Just like if you take a group portrait. If me and you stood by each other and took a group portrait, we would enjoy the group portrait, but the first person that you would look for in the picture would be yourself. The first person I would look for in the portrait would be myself. So when you look at history, the first people that you look for in the history, you want to see yourself in it. And that's what we have not seen. We have not seen ourselves in history, so we can connect ourselves to the present. I do that in the book. I trace us as a people all the way back in antiquity to the land of Israel, through the various captivities, down to where we are today with the G20. And then I also ended up showing how the Creator will bring all the nations together in the Middle East for the Battle of Armageddon, because that is what we see happening in the Middle East today. This is why Iran and the United States and Israel are on the brink of nuclear exchanges. This is why Russia is in Syria right now. This is why America is bringing forces into the Strait of Hormuz right now. The Creator is gathering all these nations, as he said by the prophet Joel. He's gathering all these nations into the region. So these nations will do battle according to the prophecies. And this will actually usher in our ingathering to go back home. So all these things are happening right before our eyes. That's why I say we have to get the information from a Yah mind, Secondly, from an independent perspective, because they want to keep themselves in power. They're not going to talk about what we're talking about, because what we're talking about is eliminating their power structure. And that's the last thing they want to talk about, is them being out of power. But the book of Daniel talks about them being out of power. It talks about them coming into power, and talks about how their power is going to be taken away. And that's what I talk about in the book.